This podcast is part of E2C Network, where we share the whole Auburn experience.
War Eagle Auburn fans, welcome to No Huddle, your source for Auburn football news and discussion, part of the E2C Network. I'm AJ Richardson, and I'm also here with Jared. This is a time when we get this break from the bye, go directly back into the SEC play against Arkansas. Jared, how are you feeling about, the bye week and now leading into this Arkansas hate week?
Arkansas hate week. I don't know. You get all hyped up and wired up when you're seeing the product on the field, and then now we're so many days removed from our last game, and you kind of just get calmed down again. And I actually have a little bit of optimism, to be honest with you, the way our offense played last game against Ole Miss. So all in all, it seems to be pretty quiet. Not a lot of craziness going on at Auburn.
Boy, that escalated quickly. That really got out of hand fast.
It jumped up a notch.
It did, didn't it?
Hopefully they were able to get some good rest and prepare for this Arkansas game.
Yeah. I think the optimism is felt not just by you, but others. Coming into the season, I think we all thought Arkansas was going to be a probably like an 8, maybe 10 win team if they're having a really good year. They're now 4-3, I feel like settled back into what I think of a typical Arkansas team is, which is 6-6, 7-5 type team, which is still good. Especially in the SEC. And that's about where I see this team kind of finishing. If we kind of look back at, Arkansas this past season, they're kind of, they've done some pretty good things. They competed against Texas A&M, but now we look at Texas A&M and that, doesn't necessarily look as good. They also got beat and slaughtered not just beat, but slaughtered by Mississippi State 40-17, and by Bama 49-26. So it's kind of an interesting, from how much success they had last year to this year, I feel like kind of, coming back down to that level. How are you kind of thinking, they're going to finish out their season now that we're a little bit of halfway over this through the season?
Yeah, I don't really know. I haven't watched enough of their games. I will say I'm with you. I think everybody was buying the Arkansas hype, and it was kind of funny. Correct me if what were they went like 4-4 last year in the SEC.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And so I get the excitement because they were so bad like 3 years ago.
Yeah.
But everybody was like, okay, they were basically crowning a team to be right behind Alabama that was 4-4 last year. That lost maybe a first round pick receiver. I know he was pretty highly thought of in the NFL and went pretty high. They lost a lot of senior leadership on defense. They had a lot of players that came back due to COVID, and they had a pretty good defense last year. They lost those players, so they're terrible this year at defense. So at the end of the day, I'm with you. I think probably 7-5. I think they are good enough on offense. I think their quarterback is good enough. I think their run game's good enough to finish 7-5. But, they don't, as bad as we are right now, they don't scare me, which is crazy.
Yeah. I think coming into the season, I was thinking, all right, we all know that Auburn tends to be pretty good after a bye week. And there's just the past with, we tend to, and specifically, dating back to Gus, like we figured out Arkansas, we beat them very consistently. So I think we had this idea of, we can probably beat them. But they could also be a surprise team that, they really put up a fight. And they're still putting up fights, but they're just not winning at, I'm sure, the rate that the Arkansas fans are kind of hoping.
That Texas A&M beat by them looks a lot worse now. A&M is not good.
Yeah.
They're just not. This is an Auburn fan saying that, but I feel like, I know it's a little off topic, but, we're at a spot right now. Okay, we're not good. Everybody's pretty sure we're going to make a coaching change, and then there's hope again, right? A&M, they're going to pay $85 million to make a coaching change. So
yeah.
they're in a pretty bad spot. But I kind of carried over from just saying how Arkansas lost to A&M, and A&M's just not playing good ball. So that was, that's a game Arkansas probably should have had.
Yeah. And we talk about head coaches. The head coach for Arkansas, I mean, he turned that program around from what we were talking about, where it was dead last in the West, to now they're competing, and that's exciting. And I think Sam Pittman is a good coach. I think most people have, at least to some degree, looked at Arkansas and said, wow, he's brought some success there. And for a school like Arkansas that doesn't have the prestigious nature as much as bigger schools in the SEC, they're making it, and that's pretty impressive to see what they're doing with their own level of talent, and just kind of Sam Pittman's hard-nosed mindset that I think Auburn is going to have to bring their A game against Arkansas, especially in the trenches, because Arkansas is one of those teams that they kind of pride themselves in that blue-collar nature. So, I mean, we've said it. Harsin said it in the past. That's kind of our goal. And really not until that Ole Miss game did we really see us kind of establish the run game. And I think that's going to be a key for us going against Arkansas this next week. All right. So let's talk about our players to watch for Arkansas. We'll start out offense and then go to defense and special teams. Jared, who are you going to be watching in this game against Arkansas?
Probably the offensive line. If they can repeat what they did against Ole Miss, I think we win the ball game.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think if that same O-line performance comes out against Ole Miss at home against Arkansas, I think we pull out a win.
Yeah, I mean, the amount of holes that they were able to open, and in combination with, I feel like Tank and Jarquez finally hit their stride, which we had hoped for, and it literally took 7 games in for us to actually see that come to fruition. And my player, I mean, I'm going to be watching running backs, plain and simple, because I think this game is going to be won or lost by how well the running backs do, and that kind of plays in hand with what you're looking at, which is the offensive line and the success that they have pushing the Arkansas defensive line around. And kind of periphery, obviously, Robbie, how he develops, because as we're seeing almost, it feels like every game, it's a little bit, we see the potential. We start seeing the small improvements made by him. So kind of, that whole piece as well. All right, let's talk about defense a little bit. Jared, who are you going to be watching on defense for Auburn?
It's a broken record. It's going to be linebacker play. And what do we do with that? We got a pretty highly touted freshman. Does Cam Riley come back? I hadn't heard his name mentioned. I don't know if he's been able to play.
Yeah.
I just feel like, Steiner and Papo had a decent game last game, but that combo's not getting the job done. Do we mix and match? Do we change it up? Is Cam Riley healthy enough to get back out there? I can't think of the freshman's name, but at some point you're like, and maybe he's not better than the other guys, but if he is and you're worried about his experience, well, experience isn't doing well. So you just put the best player on the field. So I'll be keeping an eye on that position, and probably will be until further notice.
Yeah, I feel like that's a constant kind of theme for us. I mean, it really is. It feels like almost every game, kind of our defense, as good as they are, I feel like they kind of still have one of the bigger holes is the linebackers.
Well, and I watched, and I know you're about to give your person to watch, but I watched the LSU Ole Miss game, and like Ole Miss was running those jet sweeps. LSU was there to stop it every time. And we had nobody out there on those jet sweeps. That's why they ran for 450 yards.
Right.
And I don't get it. Like, I don't know if that's schematics or what, but we're not in the right place on run plays ever. And so maybe it's schematic. Maybe I need to say Jeff Schmedding. I need to watch him. But at the end of the day, it was frustrating to watch Ole Miss out there every time stopping that jet sweep. And we had nobody out there. No answers for it.
Yeah. Looking at what Arkansas does, they like to run the ball. They're pretty balanced, average about 248 yards in the passing and then 240 yards running the ball per game. And you look at those numbers, that's cumulative almost 500 yards of offense per game. And that usually equates to points. And Auburn's gonna, if we want to keep up with Arkansas, we're gonna have to do our job. The defense is gonna have to plug those holes, and offense score points. For defense, I mean, linebacker is an easy one, but I think another key one is kind of watching, especially with injuries, kind of how that edge position continues to develop. Eku's out. Derek Hall has been put in work. I mean, he's, I think, probably one of the most played, personnel on our defense. He has so many snaps out there, and seeing him still game in and game out disrupting plays, and that's after him being on the field for 50 plus plays a game. That's a lot on a person, but he's doing it, and
Can you explain? I think we played 5 defensive linemen against Ole Miss. They ran almost 90 plays. Can you explain that to me from help me?
Yeah.
I didn't play football growing up. Help me understand why that would ever happen.
I guess so if I was a coach, especially in the SEC, I don't know if I would have made that decision, because I'm just thinking about the rotation. You have to rotate guys in, especially defensive line, where it is a physical position, and you're doing the grunt work. And that's not easy work. So I honestly question that, why they only had 5 guys that rotated in on defensive line last game. I would have had probably closer to like 8, just with how much you have to play. So maybe that truly is, like I mentioned, like I'm watching edge, and I'm curious if that's a depth issue where we're not trusting the guys past the 5th guy.
Let me ask you this. Is it possible to remain physical the entire game when the other team's running 80-plus plays?
I mean, probably not. Let's be honest.
So at some point you have to weigh your odds, right? Okay, this guy, like Jeffrey Emba, I realize he is just a physical dude who doesn't fully understand football. At some point, put him out there. He can fill some gaps, right? He might, out of sure athleticism, make a sack. I mean, you got to give people breaks.
Right.
I don't understand. Now, I know on edge we don't have a lot of options there.
Yeah.
Maybe you don't rush an edge every play. You know what I'm saying? Like maybe you put another dude out there, but you cannot. I mean, Derek Hall is playing every position on the field. He looks like he had a pick in a game, like he was playing cornerback. Playing in the linebacker where they should be, and the dude needs a break.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm curious how they kind of self-evaluate themselves, because, I mean, bye weeks are just by nature a time for you, because you're not having to prepare for the next team. It's a time for you to reflect on previous games. I'm curious if the coaching staff, I'm sure they looked at that and said, hey, this is how many snaps each player got, specifically at defensive line. And I hope they reevaluate and spread the load a little bit more. Even if the guys aren't necessarily ready, I would rather them get the experience so that in the future we have a strong defensive line, because more than likely we've got Eku and Derek Hall leaving, along with potentially others, just graduating or going to the NFL. So I want to see more experience at the defensive line, because we all know if you have a strong defensive line, that kind of dictates the other team what they can do. So one other kind of thought, and this kind of goes along with our defense, just thinking about KJ Jefferson. That's Arkansas. Last year he kind of broke out as their quarterback. He was making waves, and I feel like this year he hasn't played up to the standards of what a lot of Arkansas fans have kind of hoped he would. But if you look at his stats, they're not terrible. He's got 14 touchdowns, and he leads college football in only 1 interception thrown all year. That's honestly very impressive. Going 7 games through a season and only having 1 interception. So that's a 14 to 1 ratio there for touchdowns to interceptions. I think he could be, if we don't pay attention to him enough, he could make us pay, and pay dearly, because 14 touchdowns is a good bit for a quarterback throughout this season. So our DBs are also going to have to, they're going to have to be on their toes. All right, let's switch to special teams. Jared, who are you going to be watching for Auburn?
It's just not a lot of, there's only about 3 options, so it probably gets kind of boring. I mean, you got Carlson, you got our punter, and you got really kick returners. I'm going to stick with Carlson. I mean, we're not dominant, so at the end of the day, if we're going to win a game, there's probably going to be a few field goals that have to be made. So, and I feel like he's played much better since the Missouri game. So, let's see, if he's able to continue that. And, I'll keep an eye on him.
Yeah. I mean, it is pretty impressive, which I think it kind of did show, he had some rust, Anders Carlson early in the season where, he was missing some field goals that, we got accustomed to him and even his brother Daniel making. So I think it's showing, later in the season, he's getting that confidence back. His leg is probably more healthy now after his ACL injury. So the guy I'll be watching, and it's actually going to be multiple guys, is pretty much the kickoff return team. Just thinking back to what Ole Miss did with their onside kick, I'll be curious to see if we change formations a little bit. So instead of having a guy, 15, 20 yards off the kickoff, are we going to have guys closer to that 10-yard mark just so, Arkansas doesn't get too smart and, try something a little tricky on us when they're probably, since it is in Jordan-Hare for a noon game, they're probably going to try to, take some of that crowd out of play. How do you do that? By turnovers. And that's, in my mind, one of the biggest turnovers is successfully, executing one of those onside kicks. So we'll have to, be on our toes, ready for that. All right, let's get into our score predictions for this game. Arkansas right now, at least it opened up on Sunday, as Arkansas is a 3.5-point favorite, and ESPN actually favors Auburn slightly in their predictions, with Auburn winning 56% of the time. I have a feeling this could be a game that Auburn can win. And I feel like that's a general theme that I feel like a lot of people say. But when you kind of factor in the bye week, I feel like bye weeks can be very healthy for the players, but it's also all right, hey, we're seven weeks in. We've tried a lot of stuff. What's the stuff that's working, and what do we want to do for the rest of the season? And that's kind of where you can take this mindset and say, all right, hey, we can prepare for Arkansas, fix the things, which, I mean, the coaches have said it. Even some of the players have said it. A lot of times it's just the execution that's the problem. And if they can start executing, I think we could win against Arkansas as well as potentially upset some teams later on in our schedule. So, Jared, how are you kind of feeling with your score prediction against Arkansas? I think preseason you had us winning by 14 points, 35-21, kind of that range. We're 3-3 or 3-4. What are we? Are we 3-4?
3-4.
Yeah, 3-4, and Arkansas is 4-3. So, how are you kind of feeling? Now that we're at this point.
If Ole Miss would have never happened, I would have predicted Arkansas to win. Not easily in the sense of blowing us out, but just we can't move the ball. Ole Miss happened, and we ran for over 300 yards, I believe. And our superstar running back looked like a superstar. Robbie made some fantastic plays again, keeping his eyes down the field, making things happen. Maury Kelly made a couple of good grabs. I think the Jay Fair freshman receivers are coming along. So my whole point of all this is saw some positive things in that game. The offensive line opened some holes. And really, if we don't turn the ball over and have an unfortunate pass interference call, that game may end different on the road at Ole Miss. So the whole point of all that is Arkansas's defense is worse than Ole Miss's. It's at home. I don't think we're great. I think we do win. I think we'll win by 10. I think at home, and I'm banking on the O-line at least being equal to what they did at Ole Miss. I think that's possible against Arkansas's defense. If we can do that, Robbie's got to cut down on the turnovers, like the stupid turnover. I mean, a pick a game you can live with a young guy.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't be like fumbling the ball. Almost a lot of his aren't even where we lose it. It just kills a drive.
Right.
You know, fumbling the exchange or fumbling, just the snap. If he can stay calm, get rid of those mistakes. I think I'm picking us to win by 10.
Yeah. And again, it's at home. The environment still, which is, pretty impressive to me. I feel like we'll still be closer to, the full capacity, sold out kind of crowd. It will be midday, but I mean, Auburn's had some games like that in Jordan-Hare already, and the stadium's been pretty, alive. And so I don't have any, fears of that happening or not happening. So I really do think that the way that Auburn's going to win this is by running the ball. And if we can run the ball with our offensive line doing what they need to, I have I have a lot of faith in what we can do. And just kind of looking back at even what Arkansas has been able to allow. I mean, they're allowing a decent amount of rushing per game, but really where they can be gashed a lot is in the pass game. So I'll be curious to see how they approach this. Do they attack the pass, or do they kind of go back to what they did and was very successful against Ole Miss, where they run the ball? If they go to the pass game, we gotta get Robbie comfortable really quickly. Give him some easy passes. I mean, that's how we get Robbie into a position where he can help win us this game. All right. For my prediction, I guess I haven't officially given that. I think we're going to win by a touchdown. So by 7 points, I think it will be kind of in that range of like 21 to 28 kind of range. It could potentially also climb up into the 30s. I could also see that if both teams are scoring. And I think it just showing what Auburn did against Ole Miss, and Arkansas can score as well, with them averaging about 32 points per game. It could be somewhere in that range. All right, let's talk about kind of some just general stuff before we jump into our final segment of the day, which will be an Auburn fan perspective of the SEC. A lot of the talk over the last week or so has been around Harsin, and some people are thinking, Harsin's he's gonna get fired on the bye week. It obviously hasn't happened, but kind of the general thought is it will happen at some point in the next few months. So how does that how does that affect how we approach the rest? As a fan, how does that approach our outlook towards the rest of the season? Probably thinking that he will get fired.
It's a weird spot. I mean, there's people out there actively wanting Auburn to lose every game, so he gets fired. I'm not going to tell anybody.
I'm not that way.
I'm not either.
I think that if you're one of those people, like I would challenge you not to, but obviously you do what you want. I just think that's harsh. Like that's a hard way. You're not just rooting against like one guy, one coach. You're kind of rooting against the players, in my mind.
Yeah, I just made a stupid, corny joke. I said, Harshin? Is that Harshin? Harshin? You said that's harsh. That's terrible.
Yeah, that was pretty bad. That was one of the lower
that might be one of the
bad
worst
jokes.
dad jokes I've ever done. Wow, and that bar was not high. Yeah, I'm with you. So I'm not going to ever tell anybody what to do, right? I mean, do what you want to do. But, I mean, the whole point of wanting a new coach is so you win football games. So to actively want your team to lose, I don't know. I mean, at the end of the day, if Harsin were to run the table and recruiting picked up, we've talked about this, I'd be all right keeping him. I don't care. I just want to win football games. Like, Harsin's not done anything so bad off the field that we know about to where I'm like, this guy's got to go regardless. If he starts winning football games and recruiting picks up, keep him. I don't care. So I think at the end of the day, I'll as a fan, what I would say is really just kind of relax. It's almost a win-win situation, right? if we go out there and win, you get to celebrate. It's exciting. If we don't go out there and win, not that you're actively rooting for that, but if we don't go out there and win, you know a change is coming. And a change always brings hope. So I would say just watch the game. Don't have any stress. Enjoy it. If we win, dive into that. Don't come out and say, well, that just means Harson's going to be given another week. Who cares? Like, we're trying to win football games here. This is for the kids. Enjoy it. And don't let anybody take that away from you is what I would say.
Yeah. Yeah. And to me, you can see, I'm thinking back when we were 21-0 against Ole Miss. If the team really didn't care, they would have probably just packed their bags and, the game would have ended like 48-10 or something, but it didn't. And the team fought back. And I think rooting for that is a lot more fun than hoping that some failure happens.
You make a great point. I heard somebody else say this. They said if Harsin had lost the team, they would have gotten blown out at Ole Miss. Like, when you've lost your team, you don't come back from.
Yeah.
And we didn't win the ball game, but they absolutely came back and are a few, really 2 plays, a pass interference and an onside kick away from, maybe tying that game up. So that's a great point. If they are fighting, they're still fighting, and
I fully expect them to keep fighting throughout the rest of the season.
I do too.
Like I think, I hope, and I really do hope, we manage to get 6 wins so we get to go to a bowl game, because that could be so crucial for this team. But I mean, that's kind of a reward for, hey, the season didn't go as well as you were hoping, but you get those extra practices, and like you mentioned, and your players to watch. A lot of the guys you've kind of pointed out, let's let the younger guys come and play. And that's a perfect time for them to show up and show out in a bowl game.
You talking about winning 6 games? Man, that Ole Miss offensive performance has just screwed me up. Because I'll be honest with you, right now today, I would pick us to win our final 3 home games. Now that could easily change by 3:30 on Saturday. But yeah, as this very moment, Arkansas, Western Kentucky, and A&M. I mean, if you get just a few things right, being at home, you can win those games. They're easily winnable games.
Right. Well, and I give us even somewhat of a chance even against Mississippi State.
Yeah.
Because guess what? What is one of our strengths? Our secondary.
Yeah.
And what does Mississippi State do all the time? Pass the ball.
Yeah, we are actually a bad matchup for them because our weakness is not what they do well. So you make a great point there. I wasn't going to go as far as saying, hey, I have us winning that one too. Let's see what happens Saturday. But if we go out there and play well Saturday, I will probably predict us to beat Mississippi State. Again, I know it's one game, but like literally we saw if the O-line can create any kind of holes, we saw what Jarquez, Tank, and I think even Damari had like probably 2 runs of almost 8 or 9 yards.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, so we saw what it can be. And did they actually figure something out? And I'm banking they did. If they didn't, all this is for nothing.
Right. Well, and the coaches keep saying it now. Is it coach speak? Possibly. But, Harsin keeps saying, oh, we're almost there. We just got a couple things to fix. And for once, I was like, wow, I actually believe that statement. Because up until that, the Ole Miss game, I really didn't think we were that close. I was like, we're not even really competing. We're competing for like not even a half, it feels like. And then the rest of the game is the other team's taking it away. And best we can do is, keep it within 3 scores.
Well, and I think – go ahead, AJ. I'm sorry.
And that's just not that's not a fun way to watch
or
enjoy a game.
Well, and one other thing I'll add, LSU went to Florida, looked pretty good and won. LSU looked really good against Ole Miss. And we actually played we probably should have beaten LSU. So,
yeah.
If you're trying to look for any kind of positives here, okay, LSU's throwing the ball all over the field right now, and they had 85 yards passing against us. Now, obviously, they can get better, and maybe they figured something out, or maybe our secondary is pretty good. And, if we can limit the exposure of the linebackers in any game, then maybe we can win some of these games. So, I don't know. I think you mentioned this, but, our defense has started to slip a little bit, but they also had to be very tired because we don't rotate a lot. And they got a bye week. So get them healthy, get them rested, and I do expect a good showing this weekend from them.
Yeah. All right, let's jump into our final segment of the day, an Auburn fan perspective of the SEC, where we put on our orange and blue glasses and look at what happened in the SEC, which, this week it was a little easier since we didn't have a game. So we had more time to watch other games or not. I'm not judging. I didn't watch any. I was on vacation, so I was out of cell service, and I didn't even watch an SEC game. So, Jared, I'm going to lean a little heavy on you. I looked at scores and some highlights from it, but help me through some of the stuff that you saw in the SEC. Were there any games that you watched, and what did you notice?
Well, we will allow it this one time, AJ, for you to not watch any college football, but don't let it happen again.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I saw a good bit of the LSU Ole Miss. LSU looked really good. Ole Miss looked they looked like really the reason that I think Lane would potentially take the Auburn job. Lane's coaching was only able to take them so far. He got them up 17-3, and then the talent took over. And I think that's going to be a problem. I mean, their schedule coming up is brutal. I mean, I think that's going to be a problem for them. Bama, I watched. Bama got up like 21-0. I turned that off. So, I mean, Bryce Young looked like Bryce Young. They played really well. The South Carolina-Texas A&M game was hard to watch. At one point, South Carolina, I think, was up 17-6, and going into halftime, they had like 60 yards of offense. They had essentially returned a kickoff and recovered, I think, a fumble. But they held on, and they beat Texas A&M. Texas A&M does not look good. Tennessee blew out UT Martin. That was expected.
Yeah.
One thing about this is, I guess, a little off topic, but I don't know if you know, but I mean, Alabama. Did you see the incident that happened at the end of the Tennessee game with one of their players?
Yeah, where the Alabama player, hit just a random, female fan that was, rushing the field. Yeah.
So that player played the entire game.
Wait, really? Are you kidding me?
Yeah. He played. Saban's been asked multiple times about it, and his answers are, a little vague and weird. But yeah, so that guy played the entire game. I didn't miss any time. So anyways.
Classic Bama style,
Yeah, just throwing that out there. I was a little surprised by that, to be honest with you.
Yeah. So a couple of things that I've observed as you were talking about this. First off, Tennessee is number 3.
Yep.
Like it doesn't sound right to me. Does it? It's been so long. Like it's been since I was a kid that I feel like Tennessee has been in the contention for any kind of top 10 spot, for goodness sakes, and now a spot in the playoffs, and they're looking pretty solid.
I actually predict them. I don't know if I've said it on here. I predict Tennessee to beat Georgia. I do predict Tennessee to slip up to someone because they don't have that championship mentality yet. Yeah, they keep doing this every year. They will. I think they'll slip up. Maybe like a Kentucky or something. But I think they beat Georgia. I think in the big games they'll come prepared, ready to play, and I think their scheme is just, and their quarterback play is too good right now. Mm-hmm. And I just don't think Georgia will be. I don't think Georgia can match their scoring as well as Alabama did. Not right now.
Yeah.
Georgia will probably be great again next year on offense, and they're putting up points, but they're kind of wearing you down. But Tennessee will be too far up by then. I think Tennessee beats Georgia.
Yeah.
So yeah, and somebody posed the question today because Texas lost to Oklahoma State, and they're 5-3 now, and they said, is it possible Arch Manning is it even a possibility that he would change his commitment from Texas to Tennessee? Like if Tennessee's the new hot thing, I think this is it's hard to say with Tennessee if this is going to be consistent. I mean, everybody's talking about, well, we should have gotten Josh Heupel. Well, he was not actually. He was kind of one of those like, this is probably the best we can get with what we got going on.
Right.
And he's just done amazing work. So he was not a sure thing.
No,
will
absolutely
this continue?
not.
I don't know.
I mean, it was one of those things where they had gone through however many coaches in a short span, and it was literally turnover after turnover of coach, and they were just like, I just need something stable. Like, let's right the ship. before we go out and make that big splash hire. And like you pointed out, Heupel has had that success pretty quickly, and I don't know how many people or even Tennessee fans predicted this amount of a turnaround. I mean, I don't think any of them probably thought that was possible this quickly.
No, and they're terrible on defense, so that's why I think they'll lose the game. But offensively, it's going to be hard to keep it. I mean, they went into Baton Rouge. LSU's playing really well. They destroyed LSU in Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
So they're just playing really well, man.
Yeah. A couple other things that I noticed, and I thought this was kind of interesting. LSU, when they beat number 7 Ole Miss, they rushed the field. LSU fans did.
Very
and
weird.
I was like, what is going on? Like,
Clemson did it with Syracuse. Clemson beat Syracuse and rushed the field.
Like, why?
I don't get it.
Can you explain it to me?
I don't get it. I get the Tennessee, Alabama. I mean, that was 15 years of not winning.
Right. That would be like Auburn not being Bama for that long, and Auburn does it at home, and just that would be an incredible environment to be in. But like that's not the same in my mind. LSU doing that, weird.
I don't get it. Two. Like I said, LSU did it by beating Ole Miss. Clemson beat Syracuse and rushed the field.
Yeah.
I know that was like a game that was back and forth and they almost lost, but I don't know, man. To me, rushing the field is reserved for kick sixes, prayers at Jordan Hare. Just naming Auburn stuff, but you get the point. Or beating a team that you haven't beat in 15 years.
Right.
Like that's when you rush the field.
Yeah, exactly. The team that you're probably not predicted to beat, which I guess maybe they weren't predicted to beat Ole Miss.
But not they actually, I think, even were. Maybe they weren't. But yeah, that's not. You don't rush the field beating Ole Miss. No offense, Ole Miss.
Yeah.
You don't rush the field beating Ole Miss.
Right. And it's freaking game 7 for them. Like, it's not even that far into their season. Like, why?
I don't get it. I was surprised by that. And also, I don't understand maybe this is their multiple offense. I don't understand the charges. So, SEC fined them $240,000, but Tennessee only got fined $100,000.
Yeah, it's there's some sort of scale. I forget. Like, first offense is pretty low, like $50,000, and then it goes up to 100 and like $250, and then like I forget. There is a limit, and $250,000 might be $250,000 might be the limit. It might be $500,000, honestly. But I mean, I get it. It's for player safety. I mean, you're looking at what happened in Alabama. Like, for all we know, a player, a fan could have went up and it could happen. You hit an opponent's their teammate. I mean, it could have happened.
Yeah, there's no doubt. Fans should not be on the field. Like, that's not a good thing at all. So fans should not be on the field. But players also have, if they do go on the field and they're not truly being threatened, everybody's got to kind of know how to act, right? It's a celebration thing. Nobody's out there now, if somebody's out there threatening you, then that's a whole different thing.
Right.
But
one other final thought, and I was just thinking about this. So, South Carolina and Texas A&M, that game itself, South Carolina beating Texas A&M, like, what is going on over there at Texas A&M? Like, I just don't understand. Like, how much Jimbo is getting paid still. Like, we talked about it earlier. We talked about it on other podcasts. But the amount of money, between, if you look at, Shane Beamer's contract, he's getting about $5 million a year, which is, right around kind of the same amount as a lot of other coaches in the SEC. But then you look at, like what pretty much, the big names are getting. It's closer to the $10 million mark now. And it's like, hey, guess who's up there too? Texas A&M's coach. And it's like, how is a coach making that much money compared to like, South Carolina, where they have a lot less talent? I just still blows my mind that even happened. Like, Texas A&M should beat South Carolina every year. It shouldn't even be a competition. So,
yeah, Jimbo needs to. Who was our defensive coordinator in 2013? I don't even remember. Was it Ted Roof, or was that 2010? I don't know who the D coordinator was, but he needs to send a percentage of every paycheck to that person, because if we stop him with a minute left from winning that championship, he's probably fired from Florida State, and who knows what he's doing right now.
Right.
He got a ridiculous contract off that season, and I don't think he's a very good coach. and it's kind of showing. He had a good year during COVID, but that was a weird year. He had all senior offensive linemen, and I still go back to the fact that even Auburn should have beaten them. Very, very easily could have beaten them in a year where we fired Gus.
Yep.
So that's about the only year he's got to kind of hang his hat on while he's at A&M, and that was just a weird year with a ton of senior players.
Man, I mean, I feel like we're in an interesting spot with Harsin, but Texas A&M has to be thinking, wow, we're in it. We're in some big doo-doo with him. If he can't turn this thing around with his recruiting classes that he's already getting, I just don't understand. I truly don't.
I think that I think his recruiting class from last year will fall apart. If something doesn't turn around here. I mean, you got a bunch of 5-stars that are like, hey, I can freely enter the portal and go play at Alabama, or I mean, we might even get lucky and grab a few if we get the right coach. I mean, so like if you get Lane Kiffin in here, and I'm just throwing a name out, but an energetic guy that can dial up offense, and there's 5-stars that want to leave because they're not offense isn't working. I mean, and we need you, and if it's truly where our NIL on the victory has gotten to where people are saying it's gotten to, there's a lot of potential there. So they could get in trouble real quick down in A&M.
Right. Well, and you saw what was it right after, Orgeron at LSU. After that happened and things started falling apart. Orgeron got fired. Talk even of like, we're not gonna keep a guy. Players start thinking, I might transfer, and Auburn's kind of in that spot now. Like that's kind of the fear is our guy's gonna leave after Harsin gets fired. I would hope that they would stay, but it's bound to happen that there will be some that transfer out. And I think Texas A&M, like you mentioned, so I feel like there's an even higher potential of some of these guys leaving. If they're not seeing the success, they're going to be like, all right, let's go find another school that I can take my talents to. And they're saying, hey, I got guaranteed playtime and success, on the field itself. Yeah, they're going to do it.
So 2 things real quick, and this is all I'll say, and then I'll be done. Number one, you make a great point. Our players could leave as well. This is where the fans come into play. So if we go out there, our last 3 home games, show up, great fan support, then a lot of these kids are going to be like, listen, I love Auburn. I just need a better offense or defense, right? Like, as long as that comes along, I'm cool. I'm going to stay here.
Right.
So the fans can play a big part in whether kids stay or not. Not all of them, but a big part.
I was just looking at, I don't know if you saw a video of Stanford. Their stands were next to empty. Like, it looked more empty than like an A-Day game or something. And that was literally at kickoff. And I was like thinking, wow, I'm so thankful that Auburn fans show up to even the smaller games when we aren't having that great of a season. And they're loud and they're proud. I mean, like you said, we could have beaten teams like LSU because of that environment. And a couple of things just didn't go our way. And that the fans did their part showing up. And, like you said, that kind of comes back to the recruiting piece of the recruits that come to these games. They see the fans. They're like, these fans just are tough as nails. They're out here supporting a team when they don't even know if the coach is going to be here tomorrow. They don't. And that's pretty cool.
No doubt. I agree with you, man.
All right, Jared, how can people stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Facebook under my name, Jared Davis.
And you can find me on Twitter at AJAY_. It's always great to be an Auburn Tiger, and War Eagle.
War Eagle.
Thank you for tuning in to today's episode on the E2C Network. On your way out, I want to remind you to stop by e2cnetwork.com. It's your one-stop shop for all our content across our podcast, YouTube channel, and much more. To stay up to date with us, make sure you're following social media accounts such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. While our content here may always be Auburn sports heavy, if it's orange and blue, it's what we do. War Eagle.